My brother Tom and nephew Randall have essentially given up trying to mow this property. They've torn up 3 of the big tractor tires on their 8R John Deere tractor, and that's very expensive. We're gonna try to rescue them with the little Ferrari here and this heavy duty flail mower. Let's get started. A couple years ago, or more perhaps, ago, this was mowed with a really heavy duty rotary cutter, right? Probably a 200 horsepower plus tractor. Wasn't done by Tom and Randall, but it was just big cutter. And here's an example of a 4-inch tree that's been cut with that cutter. And what's left is it sticks up here, and this can just destroy a tractor tire, and that's what they're up against, right? So these are not rotting down very fast, and they've mowed the rest of it with their big cutter. It's so much more efficient to mow like that, but unfortunately they've just left this little piece over here that just had so many stobs in it, they've just finally given up. Well, with the flail mower, our intention is to cut it a little bit lower and be able to hit these stobs and tear them up, right? Either tear them up with the flail itself, at least splinter them somewhat, maybe cut them totally off, whatever, just to make them no longer a challenge on these big tractor tires. And then once they get in that situation, they should be able to mow this year after year. This is some sort of a government program where it's been, they're getting paid to leave it in a conservation reserve or something. I don't know the exact name of the program. There are many different programs now for different terms, different restrictions. I don't even know which one this is, but this means that this land is not going to be in production agriculture for a set number of years. Meanwhile, they need to try to keep it mowed so that eventually they can put it back in production agriculture if that seems to be the wise approach.
Now, if you've missed some of our recent episodes, this tractor is from Ferrari, and it's reversible. The operator's station can be rotated such that you're driving forward either way. We'll show that rotation in just a few minutes. And this mower that we've got on, well, what I'll call the front of the tractor here, is quite unique as well. If you look close, you can see that there's a 3-point hitch hookup on the other side as well. So you can hook to either side so you can pull it or push it. We'll show the underside of the mower a little bit later as well, but it's got a big rotor in there that's doing the cutting, and behind the rotor is a roller. This roller runs the full width of the mower, and it serves as sort of a height control. You'll see the whole mower jump sometimes. That's when this rear roller is hopping up over one of those stumps. We're running those hammers on the rotor at about 1.5 inches off the ground. So in theory, those stumps shouldn't ever be over about 1.5 inches high. The rules for this government program do not allow them to apply any chemicals to kill these trees. It also doesn't allow them to convert this into a hayfield and collect the hay and make a profit off of that. So Tom and Randall have committed to mow it once per year for the landowner. That's right, this was mowed 1 year ago, and it's already grown back up this much. Those trees with the big leaves, I think they're sycamores, must really grow fast. I've had several folks remind me in the comments that this is not the first reversible tractor. The first one that I remember as a child was made by Versatile. Of course, back then we didn't see up-to-date videos on YouTube. They didn't offer an entertainment system on our horse and buggy. Anyway, I have no idea how long these tractors have been available in Europe, but the last one I know of from New Holland here in the USA went out of production in the early 2000s, well before this recent boom in popularity of compact tractors and attachments. So I'm thrilled to see Ferrari making another try of it here. As I've stated before, I'm a huge fan of upfront mowing. I don't like running over the material before I try to cut it off.
Hopefully you can see the deer in the background. I've seen a lot of deer beds in this area here that hasn't been mowed. And that's one of the reasons this is not being farmed, is they wanted to leave it for hunting. And in some ways that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because growing corn on it is great for deer as well. So, but that's what they've chosen to do here. It's really interesting. Is she coming on out?
She's walking towards us.
She's curious as to what's going on, isn't she?
Yeah.
I hesitate to turn around. She's judging our mowing job. I don't know if she's happy at all that we're mowing or if she's going to come up here and tell us that she doesn't like what we're doing.
She's walking.
Coming right toward us, huh?
Yeah.
This mower is really heavy duty. It's 220 centimeters wide, roughly 7 feet. It's offsettable. There's a hydraulic cylinder here that allows you to control the offset of the mower. It can be ran frontwards or backwards. So you could hook onto this side of it with a regular tractor and pull it, or we can push it with this tractor. The gearbox, the way it's made, allows that to work in either direction. The gearbox has a really unique feature on this one, and that is no matter which way you turn the shaft, it turns the mower the same direction. Let me repeat that. You can turn this shaft clockwise and it'll turn the mower properly. If you turn it counterclockwise, it'll still turn the mower properly. A little bit of magic right in here, right? I'm not sure I fully understand how that works, but I saw it. I did it by hand and it's pretty amazing. Really large hammers on this mower. It's meant for large material. I believe the website said 4.7 inch material. Now I'm not absolutely certain, but I saw that on the website. We'll show you that here. That seems like an enormous tree to try to run through this mower. We're running through these sycamores here and it's just obliterating them, right? I mean, it's tearing them to pieces. In fact, all of this material, we're not having any issue at all, just tearing it to pieces. And what we see left behind it is, it's almost like nothing's here. It just disappears. I mean, the mulching capability of this mower is really special. I'm very surprised at that. And you can compare that to the mowing that was done just a week or two ago here with a rotary cutter. And you know, it's a dramatically different look. Now, that requires a lot of horsepower. 7-foot mower, and it is, quite frankly, more than this tractor needs. And this tractor's full 75 horsepower. I have no doubt about that. I'm not saying anything negative about the power of this machine. I'm saying this mower just takes that much to do this much mulching, right? I mean, that's what we're seeing. The material stays in the chamber here for a long time, and there are little knives in there that are only about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch long, but the material stays in there and just keeps getting chopped till it finally gets thrown out the rear in very fine material. So that's why it takes all this horsepower. So if I go through a really heavy spot, I will notice that maybe 20-30 feet past that, the engine is still struggling with that material that we picked up in the heavy spot, right? So it's just taking a lot of power to be able to run that. I want to show turning this operator station around. I got a lot of questions about it in the earlier episode. I had shown it in our first video when we were at the Farm Machinery Show, but it's worth showing it again here. You pull both of these pedals up so that they'll be able to rotate. Then there's this lever here, right? And then the seat comes forward. That's all there is to rotate it right there. Get that seat belt out of the way, and then we can go the other direction. That's it. Just put the pedals back down. I want to go this other direction here today, so that's the way I'm going to run. But it truly is trivial to switch directions on the seat. The operating station is tight. I find that getting in and out is the hardest part. I am relatively comfortable once I'm in, but there's not much room here, and that's just really tight. Well, remember, the whole tractor's 4.5 feet wide. Essentially, just a little bit wider, maybe 4 to 5 inches, 6 inches wider than a 1025R. Yeah, it's very tight in here, and we set very low. It's not like we're setting up above these wheels, right? We're setting right in here, so that's the reason we have this tightness in the space. But I do have room for my feet, and there is a little less foot room, I think, when we're facing this direction than when we're facing this direction. So that's just a couple of items on the inside. There is a fully pressurized cab option, and that would be a lot nicer in this particular material. We're getting some of that very fine cut grass inside the cab. And when I look, there's some slots here that are exposed. I do wish we had a little bit tighter cab here, but there is an option for that. The air conditioning is working suitably, so that's good. I still feel comfortable. I suspect the pressurized cab would also be a little bit quieter than this one. This one I still feel the need to wear a set of headphones for hearing protection. Probably if I were putting my own money into it and I could afford it, I would buy the pressurized cab. Now this area here is some of the most difficult that we've been mowing. The material's pretty heavy here, and under the higher brush that you see here is some fescue. And I tell you, matted fescue, Kentucky 31 fescue, is one of the more difficult things that a mower, any type of brush mower, can mow, and I think it affects a flail even worse than some others. These larger, I believe they're sycamore sprouts here. I can handle kind of one bunch of them without too much trouble, but if I happen to hit two bunches of them at exactly the same time, it's about all the tractor can handle, right? I mean, it just takes that much horsepower. See, I'm able to take that one and go right on through. Yeah, I pulled it down a little bit, but if I hit two bunches or more at the same time, I actually have to take a little break, clutch it just a second to let it catch up. I'm running about 1 mile per hour. Low range, third gear. Okay, that's one positive about this tractor. It has some very low gearing. The lowest gear at full throttle is 0.4 miles per hour. So you really do have some fairly low gearing. And if you're in a scenario where you don't have to run full throttle, you can go really slowly, which is important for a lot of tasks. I don't know if the smaller
Birba 5-foot flail
that I have would have been up to this task. It's not rated for nearly this large a material. It's not rated for 75 horsepower. I think we're probably doing a good thing by using this heavier duty mower. Even though it's wide and it's really putting a burden on the tractor, I would have hated to have used that smaller Birba. I'm afraid I might have torn it up. The material's lighter down on this end, and I'm able to go a little bit faster. For instance, I'm at 2 miles per hour right now. I'll have to slow down when it gets heavier here. For that aspect, I'd love to have either a CVT or hydrostatic transmission, or at least some sort of shift on the go, so that I could change that speed more easily without clutching. One of the two gear selectors here is synchronized, so that's very similar to the Deere tractors in the 75 horsepower range, where the range selector is not synchronized, but the gear, the 1 through 4 on the gear, is synchronized. Of course, my shifting there, I had to shift both range and gear to be able to change speed, so that basically come to a full stop. Boy, this is big stuff.
I really enjoyed crossing this little ditch. It felt quite unique in this tractor. The oscillation you can see here, well, it's just not something you experience in a traditional tractor.
Do a little wiggle waggle.
I mentioned that I wasn't going to do a complete review of this tractor because of improvements that I think are happening on the next generation that I'm supposed to get next spring. This is one of them. The small grass and seeds and stuff are really caking up on this radiator screen. It's kind of come off now since I've shut the tractor off. But it happens really fast. Now this is not unique to the Ferrari. This does this on a lot of tractors. Here, over here, Christy, you can... It's a little shaded in here, but you can kind of see what it looks like when it's fully covered. Now, what I notice when I take the hood up, in fact, let me do this. Is that the radiator itself is in good shape. So this screen is really doing a good job. I see just a little bit right over here. And I have not cleaned this out other than what I just did right there, blowing it out myself with my own hot air. The screen is doing a great job, but I do have to stop quite often to clean this screen. So relating that back to the next generation, I talked to them about this already, and they said that I believe a reversible fan is an option on the next generation tractor. Wow. If so, I want that. Aha! No wonder my AC was not quite as C as it used to be. Well, it doesn't look to be in real bad shape.
Now you're getting it in your cab.
Uh-oh.
Almost finished at this point. You can see one little strip there that's darker. And other than that, it's pretty easy to see the light colored area that we've mowed today and just how low and slick it's cut as compared to what was cut with a rotary cutter just a week or two ago. Now, if you're interested in one of these Moschio flail mowers, or any Moschio attachment for that matter, contact the folks at Rock Pit Equipment, rockpitequip.com. Let them know that Tractor Time with Tim sent you, and you will get a special discount. I tried going over some of this that Tom had already mowed, and of course I could go a lot faster since there wasn't nearly as much material to cut. But the dust and grass seemed even worse and plugged the radiator several times in a single pass. Thankfully, this time I had my able assistant to clean it for me so I didn't have to get out. Because I had to go so slow, it took about 10 hours probably to mow this, and roughly 30 gallons of diesel. I don't have a good estimate for how much we actually mowed. The entire field that we've shown you from the drone shots is 65 acres. I'm guessing that Tom left us about 10 acres here to mow. This was the area with the worst stobs and trees, so they just kind of gave up at that point and turned it over to us.
I have to say this was a success. Yeah, it's too bad that Tom and Randall couldn't be along for this. We got just a little bit of video with them playing with it right before dark yesterday evening, but they just didn't have time. They're right in the middle of harvest. I'd like to be helping them too, but we really needed to get this mowed, and so they didn't have any equipment to do it. The Ferrari and the Moschio flail to the rescue, and we didn't have any tire issues. I attribute that to mowing in front, number one. Tom also attributed it a little bit to the tractor being lighter than their very heavy 8R tractors, which something's got to give, right? They run into a stop with one of those tires, something's got to give. This tractor might be able to kind of hop on over it or something. It's entirely possible, but I think for the most part, it's because we were hitting those stobs very aggressively in front of the tractor. By the time the tires got there, there wasn't much danger left. I thought we'd take a little look at the business end here, and these hammers look to be in good shape. No damage to them. They truly are heavy duty. Amazing what this thing will go through, and yeah, put enough horsepower behind this, it's pretty tough. Now, from an issues standpoint, this was a big project for this tractor and mower. It had just grown so large. It's hard for me to believe, although I know it's true, that it was mowed last fall. So it's 1 year of growth, and it looks like 5 years of growth, doesn't it? I mean, it was just absolutely overgrown in one season. For those in the Western Plains states, they just wouldn't believe that, I'm certain. But I think one of the lessons here is that we're going to have to mow this twice during the year. This is just, it's too big by the time we do a one late season mowing. Those trees have grown too much, and they cause some of those, we call them stobs, that cause the tire issues in the future. So I think I'm going to try to encourage Tom and Randall to see if we can mow this twice next year. This is a difficult situation because there's not much money in this conservation reserve program for the landowner, which is not Tom or Randall. It is extended family that we've known and dealt with for years. But there's not a lot of money there, right? And so all of this mowing is just cost down the drain for them, right? It's fuel costs for us and equipment costs, and really there's no revenue in it. So it's not a very attractive thing, but I think we're gonna have no choice. We've got to mow it a second time. So maybe we'll try to get down here sometime in the late spring and see if we can help them mow, maybe even while they're still planting in the spring. That's one of the other challenges, right? I mean, during spring planting is when they need to be mowing this. The other issue that I encountered with this system here was just all the dust, and dealing with the dust. It was a big coolant issue. Again, I've already talked to Ferrari about it, and they've got a reversible fan apparently headed in the next generation tractor. I wouldn't have been able to do this. I wouldn't have had the patience to have done the entire 65 acres because some of this just, I would go one through the field and it would be all caked up on the back. So I'm looking forward to a solution to that. We also had some issues with the filtration up here in the air conditioning. Same thing. It was just this grass and all was so fine, and seeds and dust was so fine that it just filled up everywhere, right? You can just tell by looking at the tractor just how dusty it is. So I think rather than to go into in-depth analysis on this machine, I'm going to wait till we get the one next spring, and then I will do that more in-depth review, showing as much detail as possible. With this 2-year-old design, I think it's just better just to wait, right? I think that there'll be a lot more information, and there will be probably a lot more of those tractors available for purchase anyway. So that's what we're going to do. Meanwhile, let me just kind of finish with this. I am excited about upfront mowing. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim.
This is what the Lord says to me. I will remain quiet and will look on from my dwelling place, like shimmering heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. For before the harvest, when the blossom is gone and the flower becomes a ripening grape, he will cut off the shoots with pruning knives and cut down and take away the spreading branches.